Welcome back to the Lou Perez Podcast. My name is Lou Perez, and I'm happy to report that right now you can order my book. That's right, I wrote a book. It's called That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore, on the death and rebirth of comedy. Follow the link in the description or head over to Amazon and search for Lou Perez, That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore. If you want other options on how you can buy my book, please sign up for my newsletter at thelouperez.com. You could also join my community at thelouperez.locals.com. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. And if you could leave a 5-star review, that would be amazing. Whether you're a long-time listener or a first-time, 5-star reviews are lovely. If you're looking for other ways you can support me, you can do so by supporting my sponsors. If you're into CBD products, please check out palomaverdecbd.com. Use promo code LOU to get 25% off purchases over $75. And if you like cold brew, check out Black Organic Cold Brew at www.blvckbrew.com and use promo code LOU for free shipping. All right, let's go. My next guest, you could say that I've built quite a rapport with over the years. He's a great friend of mine, a collaborator, an awesome comedian, and somebody who I often look to for rationalism in this otherwise crazy world. Please give it up for Boris Khaykin, everybody.
Thank you. You know what? This is how you know it's really rapport, because even out of like some of my closest friends, they still can't pronounce my last name, and you got it nailed down. And it's a high bar. It's truly a high bar.
You know, I think I was, I'm trying to remember the day where I think I felt very embarrassed for not pronouncing it correctly, because it was I had known you for a little while, and it's sort of like that. It's sort of like when you're in high school and, you know, you're eating lunch with the same kids for the first 8 weeks. And you don't have it in you to ask them what their names are,
Right?
You don't know what their names are, and nobody drives yet, so no one has a license, so you can't be like, "Hey, can I see your license?" And you can see mine.
And you haven't learned formal adult introductions where you can introduce them to somebody else as a means of learning their name.
Right? Yeah.
This is my friend Steve. Steve, say hello.
Yeah, because chances are, if there's you might not know that other person's name either. You might still be
just introduce strangers as a third party.
My Boris, like I said, we've known each other for a while. Boris came to my wedding. I went to his wedding, and I think one of the complaints Michelle has about me. Yeah, it's not even I don't even know if it's a complaint. I think it's just something that she's had to deal with, is the fact that I don't remember people. I don't remember people, and there are people in her life who I don't remember meeting. And it's not like I'm not like a narcissist or everything's about me, and it's like I just don't remember them. So so anytime something is coming up, she has to explain to me who this person is again.
She's got flashcards, like she's hunting down the mob, except it's just her social circle.
Yeah, exactly. Or sometimes I feel like it's going to be like my version of Memento, where I'm going to have to start tattooing these, people who shouldn't be strangers to me, just putting them on my skin so I remember who the fuck they are.
Super casual Memento. He actually had those tattoos before he had to figure out the story of his wife.
Oh my God, super casual Memento. It's like,
pick up laundry on Tuesday, just tattooed across the chest.
Who am I? Yeah, I figured a really boring version of Memento would be remembering, not being able to remember if I brush my teeth in the morning. I don't know if you're like me in that regard.
I'm like you in the sense that I brush my teeth when I shower almost always. And so if I don't shower right away in the morning, I'll definitely forget. If I go to the gym and shower after the gym, I won't brush my teeth till 2 or 3. That's just how I do.
Well, for me, it's become easier to forget because I don't sleep very well now because having kids, and people who listen to this podcast are like, dude, shut the fuck up about complaining about not being able to sleep, because we get it. You have kids, you're fertile, you're able to make, you're able to create. But I think another thing is I'm addicted to coffee now, and I want coffee right when I wake up. So if I'm having like coffee, then it's cold brew right there. It's a lot easier for me to put off taking care of the very necessary taking care of my teeth. And I'm going to pay for it at some point.
How are they when you go to the dentist? Do you get a lot of like feedback, a lot of grief?
No cavities. I haven't had a cavity in a long time. I think maybe a few years ago there was like a filling that had to be replaced or something like that. But the big thing that I have is when I get my teeth cleaned, there are very big spaces on my bottom teeth in particular. So there have been times where I've got my teeth cleaned, I come back and I like smile, or I'm just talking and Michelle is like, "Oh, did you eat like a everything bagel or something? Because there's like, do you have like poppy seeds in your teeth?" And I'm like, "No, there's just like the spaces there."
She forgets they're there because they get filled with food.
Yeah, they get filled with muck. But I was thinking about this for a while, because I have a lot of revenge fantasies, and I have like these kind of obsessive memories of people who've wronged me in my life, which is funny because I think maybe the reason why I don't remember any of Michelle's friends is because I have all that space is being taken up by these revenge fantasies that I have.
You need her friends to wrong you in order for you to remember them.
In order for me to remember them. Yeah. But when I remember when I was a kid, we had living in Woodside, there was a local dentist that we would go to, and we would go to get our checkup, right? And my mom was so funny because like the morning of the checkup at the dentist, that's when she'd be like, "Brush your teeth. You have to brush your teeth." So it's like she wasn't like strict about us brushing our teeth.
But they know
for that. Yeah.
They know when you just do it that day. They know you haven't been flossing and you just flossed today for the dentist.
Exactly. And I remember going to this dentist to get cleanings, and all she would do is sort of like pick around, like with the pick, and then kind of like send us on our way. And that was like years and years of that happening. And it wasn't until we went to a different dentist, who I think was like the same dentist for like a kid I played hockey with, when I got like a real cleaning, where it was not only the picking, but then it was also the water pick, and it lasted like, half hour to 45 minutes. And even as a kid, I was like thinking like, how the fuck is it possible that this person is running this sham operation out of fucking, Woodside, Queens or whatever, this friggin' butcher. Yeah. So that person, I gotta I gotta find out her name for my mom, because I think it's time for payback. It's like
the guy from Catch Me If You Can, just fooling you as a dentist.
It was a woman actually. And this is kind of, this is weird. I remember distinctly, there's the sort of hack premise about when you're at a dentist and they have your mouth open and they won't stop talking and you can't talk back to them, right? So now imagine I'm a kid and that's happening, and this dentist is bringing up the fact that my two older brothers aren't my real brothers because they have a different dad. Like that was part of conversation that she brought up.
Good Lord.
Fucking, it was like, what? Like, what are you talking, what are you talking about? Really awkward interactions at the dentist. There's one more interaction. Yeah.
Is that how you found out? Or that was just...
Yeah, that's like, how did you know? She's like, well, I could tell from their teeth, probably.
Well, I got bad news and good news. The good news is you don't have cavities. The bad news is your family is a lie.
Yeah, it's all a lie. And it was so weird because especially at that time, my older brothers were, they were my brothers. I didn't think of anything like, oh, they're 50% my brother because we have the same mom. It's like, no, they were 100% my brother. So to hear a stranger, I think that was sort of the first time I think of a stranger kind of projecting what they viewed of the familial relationship, and putting that into my young head. Oh my God, I gotta find out where what that place was. And for my mom, I had a really awkward thing that happened there too. For those of you just tuning in, why are you just tuning in now? That's kind of weird. You should listen from the beginning. We're talking about my experience at a dentist, a shitty dentist in Woodside. There was one time I came out of the I just gotten mangled or whatever in that dentist chair, and I come out, and in the waiting room in the lobby is an older Black woman, and she looked at me and said, "Oh my God, Louis, you look like you're dying." And I was like probably 8 years old. How fucking weird is that? Like what?
I pictured the Oracle when you said that.
Yeah. She was very, very thin woman. I think she had a scarf on her head. How she knew my name, I think it was because my mom was talking to the secretary there about making another appointment, and this woman is, just turned to me and said, "Oh my God, Louis, you look like you're dying." And like this is like a black hole of awkwardness and shame, that is this dentist.
Those dentists really, they need because that is a trope. Like I also had a dentist that talked nonstop. I remember not liking her, but we specifically went to her, and this is a very typical Russian thing. But I think what was happening was she would bill both of my parents' insurances individually, and then this way there was no co-payment. It was like typical, Russians insurance scam type stuff. And then I hated going to her, but it was affordable for us to do. And then eventually she lost her eyesight and she couldn't be a dentist anymore. But it's definitely a trope. And I feel like they should just advertise a children's dentistry. That's just like, our thing is that we shut the fuck up. We won't talk to your kids. Your kids hate it. And our thing is we all stay silent. We just do dentistry in perfect silence.
Yeah. There's I was going to another dentist for a little while, and it's that stereotype. I'm sitting down, my mouth's open, he's working on me, and he starts bringing up what really happened with JFK. Like, what? Serious, like conspiracy theorist dentist. Going on.
Did you ever ask him about fluoride in the water?
I don't think I was hip to that at that time. I don't think I had gone like full libertarian yet, and that doesn't mean like if you're a libertarian you need to be against fluoride. Like when you go full libertarian, a lot of the people you interact with are not hip to the fluoride. Then you find that out. Yeah.
I did ask. I had a dentist years later and years ago now, very nice gay gentleman on the Upper West Side, and we ended up being friends on Facebook. And then I asked him about fluoride because I'd gotten hip to that conspiracy at one point, and he was just like, "I need you to know this is not true. It is one of the best things for public health that we have ever done is add fluoride to the water." Like he was very passionate and adamant about the fact that it is not a thing I should worry about.
Yeah. I mean, and I remember learning about, well, apparently fluoridation can work two ways. It could either be adding more fluoride or reducing the amount of fluoride in water. That's something I learned. There was I think his name is Brian Dunning. He used to have like these skeptic videos on YouTube. He's the guy. I don't know. I mean, this happened so long ago. He's the guy who went on Joe Rogan like ages ago, maybe like 10 years ago, and he had accused Joe Rogan of being a conspiracy theorist and like denying the moon landing and all this stuff. And to Joe's credit, he had this guy on, I think, for like over 2 hours and was very calm the whole time, like sort of picking this guy apart. And the guy came off as like a real asshole, like just a guy who did not seize an opportunity to, perhaps change some minds, or to take part in like a friendlier, banter and all that. And I think I donated to this guy before he had gone on Joe Rogan, because I used to be into like the skeptic movement and stuff, and like, oh, he's making videos, let me donate some money to him. And then it turned out he's a criminal. He like screwed over some people with some programming that he did on like a website or something like that. And I don't know if he did time, but he was definitely found guilty of whatever this stuff was. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Just projecting his guilt onto poor Joe Rogan. Well, who's on top now?
Well, and the thing that sucks about it too is, like, for one, he came off as a dick on Joe Rogan, and then it comes out that the guy is a criminal. And, while that should have no bearing whatsoever on the truth of the universe and scientific truth, it's kind of like, well, guy, it's a little harder for you to, be the skeptic when you come off as a piece of shit,
Yeah, or somebody who's like doesn't necessarily care. How are you going to care about objective reality if you're committing fraud, or communicating objective reality for that matter?
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of like, in when he likes to, debunk fraudsters when it's not his own fraud that's being, debunked.
That reminds me of all those like Catch a Predator independent ones that are on like YouTube. You ever seen those?
Oh, the guys that they meet up at like Toys R Us or the mall or something like that.
Yeah, they like lure like pedophiles or like quasi pedophiles online to meet up at a mall, and then they got a camera but they do it to make YouTube content. And there was one of them that I watched a while ago that was like one of the main ones that like started it and like taught these other ones that basically like came clean and was just like, these people are narcissists. Like some of them maybe are taking some predators off the streets, but also they're like purely doing this for their own egos, and like sometimes it's questionable who it is that they're luring and whether they're actually like the context they're setting up as the truth and stuff, because they're just obviously like trying to blow up on YouTube.
Yeah. This is probably a good segue into I made a video recently that went viral on Twitter, and you guys could check it out now if you go to my Twitter feed at Lou Perez. And Boris, I don't know if you saw this one, but
I did. I liked it. It was very funny. I both liked it literally and liked it in the proverbial sense.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So for those of you who haven't seen it, there's a character that I play. I don't have a name necessarily for this character, but it's basically me wearing a black beanie and a pair of old eyeglasses that I had. And I broke this character out a while back about when I was commenting on the Joe Rogan Spotify controversy. And in the video that I do, I shoot it, I handheld, shoot the video. And I'm this character saying, Joe Rogan needs an answer for this, that, and the other thing. And positioned on my bookshelf behind me is what some call a sex toy, a fist. Let me get that for.
Oh man, I was really hoping
it was in my ass.
Yeah, I was really hoping you're like, let me get that for you,
and then just pop up.
Yeah, covered in like what a fetus comes out in.
Yeah. Oh, like all amniotic fluid and all that. So this thing is up on my shelf. And for those of you who are real fans, you'll notice it is the official grab him by the pussy hand from the Trump therapy series that I produced independently. So here I am doing this character, and this thing's on the shelf, and the amount of comments that are just like, I can't hear a word this guy's saying. I just keep looking at that butt plug or the butt fist or whatever. And then I did a follow-up video explaining that this isn't a sex toy at all. It is a resistance fist with extended fingers, to show solidarity with Black Lives Matter and all that. So that's where this character comes from. So I put this character on a playground, and said that he had come to this playground to talk to children about sex and gender. Any child that comes to the playground, he's going to talk to them about this. The principal of the school said that she called the police, and he refused to leave, and he's waiting there to see what happens. I bring that up because the amount of people who not only thought it was real, but thought it was real and also wished death upon me is amazing. It's wild. Actually, one fan of mine, she actually reported one of the guys who threatened to literally slit my throat. And I had responded to him and said, well, if you do it figuratively, I'm in. I'm not looking for you to do it literally.
Now, to be clear, is this a guy that's mad because he believes that your character is sincere and he's mad because you're going to teach sex to children? Or is this a guy that it's like leftist and is offended by you making fun of that?
No, I think pretty much all of the negative comments come from people on the right who
didn't listen to the last line where you're going to teach sex to a cop.
To a cop, whoever shows up first, whether it's a child in kindergarten or a police officer, they're going to get a lesson. And then at the end, I go down a slide. Yeah,
so. Yeah. They definitely didn't get the last 10 seconds is where there's just like, if you didn't get it yet.
Yeah. So, there, and I mean, the amount of people with patriot in their bio, or, Trump won and all that, I really ignited something in them, that,
you triggered them.
Yeah. I triggered them. I triggered them for sure. And, what I find, there are those ones, and then there are the people who are like, I don't know if this is fake or not, but if it's real, something better be done about this guy. It's like they're really covering their bases there. Did I lose you for a second?
No, I'm here. I'm here. Just pondering the existence of these folks.
Yeah, but my favorite thing that happened, and when I found this out, I put my phone down, and when I picked it up, it was the video was blowing up on Twitter, and it's funny how like a video it like blew up on Twitter but didn't blow up anywhere else that I shared it. So it's funny the things that take off. But then I looked and I saw that Andrew Sullivan, who is Sully Dish on Twitter, he has like over 250,000.
I'm very familiar with Andrew Sullivan. Yeah, I
regularly listen to his podcast. I think he's brilliant. I'm a huge fan of his. I think he's excellent. He retweeted it.
And asked for your number.
No, he retweeted and he wrote, "Freelance proselytizing the new religion to young children. Jesus, leave them alone." So,
oh no,
yeah. So they say never meet your heroes, and I've never met Andrew Sullivan. I'd consider him to an extent a hero, but if you can fool your heroes, go for it.
Oh man!
Or I didn't even mean to fool him though. I hope this doesn't actually get in the way of me meeting him one day, because I would really like to. And so he, retweeted it, with that, and helped blow it up. And then a bunch of blue checks were like, "It's satire. It's satire." Like having to let him know. And then I checked his feed a little later in the day, and he had he had deleted it.
Recanted.
Yeah, but it's it's like, I'm like, am I that good of an actor, or is it like so many of the commenters were saying, like you can't tell nowadays because some stuff is just so out there.
The line is gray for sure. There's definitely some stuff that's more satire than satire. That's the worst also, when like not only does the person that you like and admire miss it, but then when others like the blue checks you said jump on, and now you're sort of aligned. I had a joke a while ago that I posted on Facebook. This is years ago. I don't even remember what it was. I just remember it was misunderstood by one of my favorite high school teachers who I had been Facebook friends with, and he commented like, for shame, like literally like shaming, thinking that I don't even remember what it was. I just remember his response was trying to inflict shame on me specifically because he'd missed the joke. And it was like pretty popular. Like, it wasn't like the joke was that subtle. It was like clear a lot of people were laughing and commenting on stuff. And so he missed the joke. And I really gently tried to like clue him in, and like that's what I'll do often on Facebook, is like if somebody does miss it, I'll try to like double down in a way that's just a little more obvious, so that, you know, because this way they're not as embarrassed to realize that they missed it. And then he went back and edited his comment to make it look like he'd gotten the joke but found it offensive nonetheless, just so he wasn't totally backtracking. And then commented after that being like, you know, I got, like, literally redid it. And so then, of course, like other people that I'm friends with on Facebook start jumping on this guy and are like, "Hey, boomer, we know you can see the edit history of your Facebook comment," and just like one after the other. And I deleted the whole freaking post, and it was a good joke because I felt so bad that now these people were like bullying my former high school teacher that I really like.
Well, and the fact that it's happening, you know, whatever's happening is happening on another side of a screen very far away from you. So you can only imagine what's going on in his head, or the embarrassment and all that.
Yeah.
And that, I think, makes it, you know, harder, especially if you're a good person, where you're like, I don't want, you know, this is a good relationship. I don't want him to feel bad about
Yeah, I
what's
sent
going
him a
on.
long message and everything. I was just like, sorry the way that it happened, but also it's a fucking joke.
Yeah.
And it's just when people want to get mad, I think it makes them a little bit stupider, you know, when you're in a heightened emotional sense. And it's just going to be harder to pick up on stuff that normally I know he's an intelligent, normal person that would pick up on. But as soon as you get mad, you get a little stupider.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think a similar thing was happening on this, you know, in this video too, in the comments, where people who thought it was real and then were quickly, you know, taught a lesson that it, you know, no, it's satire. They're like, well, you're sick for even thinking this is funny, or even making this joke, or how,
Right.
you know, how dare you, you know, do this. So what's so funny is, uh, I went to the playground over the weekend with my wife and 2 kids. So like while the youngest was taking a nap in his stroller, and Michelle was playing with the oldest at like a different, at you know, like, say, the slides over there, Daddy went into the corner and set up a tripod that he just ordered on Amazon, and, you know, did this in like like 3 or 4 takes, and then went back to having, you know, a beautiful day with his family. And it's I don't know, you and I have been making stuff together for a while, and it is really funny to just meet the people who can't fathom that you could have these really like fucked up scenarios or jokes, but it doesn't come from a place of, oh, this is what I really think about the world, or this is stuff that I'm into, you know?
Yeah. And well, I guess you're hanging out at a playground with your kids. I'm sure that in some way inspired, I don't know if you thought of it beforehand or not, but it's like sometimes a perverse thought enters your mind, and that's like the whole point is it's not what you actually think, but it entered your mind, and so it's funny to entertain it.
Yeah, yeah,
satire.
no, and that's exactly what happened. We were at this same playground, I think, during the week. I think we walked there, and then I was like, I had the idea, like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if, like, you know, that character had just come here, just ready to talk to any kid who we could find. Uh, and I think I recorded like a test little thing, just to, get the ideas out there. And then after that, that's when pre-production happened. When I got the beanie, when I got the glasses, and all that. But yeah, I think, I've said this before on this podcast. I think, doing comedy and being writers and producers and all that, we're really lucky in that we're allowed to go down those rabbit, would it be a rabbit hole? We're allowed to explore those ideas, as messed up as they might be, and see what happens and produce something from them.
Yeah, what's funny though is in New York, and like I think we've probably talked about this at some point, is like it's become such a moralized industry that in some ways, a lot of times when I go hang out with my friends that aren't in comedy, we'll delve down more fucked up rabbit holes and do jokes that like really either I can't do, or that like maybe I could do, but it takes a certain amount of time to like really work it out to where you could do it like as a stand-up bit in front of an audience, where like I can't even work it out at some shows in New York because they don't have the patience for that, and like I had that bit a while ago about like, sometimes I have to warn my friends back in Jersey, like, oh, these are my friends in comedy. You're going to have to like, fuck, what was it? It was basically like, they might be sensitive when you joke around some topics. Like I have to warn my non-comedy friends that the comedy friends might.
Yeah, that is like such a perfect encapsulation of it. Yeah.
Just a weird reversal.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I'm I don't get to hang out that much with like other comedians and stuff. I don't think I mean, outside of like producing stuff and hanging out like on set, or when we were years ago when we would do like writers' rooms and that sort of thing. That was always fun. That's, I think, where I would get my kicks. Because like we're like I'm a big fan of gossip. So sort of, so I absolutely loved like you, and then our mutual friend, Brandon Bassham, like having like you two guys in the room, just letting me know, just bullshitting about like, the improv scene and the comedy scene and whatever's happening online and like in chat rooms and stuff like that. I hope I'm not giving too much away.
Who's getting banned from UCB these days?
Yeah, man. Like in a way, like I kind of felt like we should have been in a fucking beauty parlor, like getting our hair done. Like you guys go, like you get your bodacious beard done while we're talking about this stuff.
Yeah, not enough hair to get done these days.
Yeah. Well, just a little thing about Brandon, and I gotta get Bassham on here. So without giving too much away, you and I have small parts in his feature that he's doing, one of his latest features. So
yeah. I couldn't make the second filming day, and my lines had to get cut. So I won't give any more away. But I'm just playing a physical thing that is still quite enjoyable and grotesque and worth.
Yeah, I got to watch it. I got to see a little bit of the test footage.
Yeah.
And for those, Brendan Bassham, he's a fucking awesome comedy writer. He's written and directed for Troma, and this new movie is a Troma production. And not giving too much away, but there's a lot of death and a lot of gore. And I'm still waiting to shoot my death scene
Nice.
that I'm really looking forward to. I've been kind of like growing up in the in the 80s and 90s. Like there's a big part of me that absolutely loves like 80s and 90s horror movies.
Practical effects.
Yeah, exactly, practical effects. And there's actually a lot of those movies take up space in my brain that is probably another reason why I don't remember a lot of Michelle's friends and stuff,
Yeah,
because it's being taken up by that shit that hit me really young.
that's another one they need to do. Like Brandon needs to direct a movie that's just starring Michelle's social circle, and then you watch that.
Yeah, it's like,
And
can you guys
watch
all
the credits?
yeah. Can it be a slasher film and with some gratuitous like titty shots and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Then I'm gonna remember. But yeah,
Steve,
so
you got stabbed in the asshole during the second act. Great to see you.
exactly. So this is my opportunity to to be in kind of one of those kind of low budget horror movies, and I'm very I'm very happy to be a part of it. So
Me too, although it's my second time because I did play a crackhead in the first Purge. So now I got a real streak.
whoa, did that make it in
Oh
into the
yeah.
movie?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it was very fun. Not I mean relatively low budget, but not like actually low budget. It
Mhm.
was like one of the biggest film sets I've been on.
What let's talk about that. So for those people out there who are fans of The Purge, how long into the movie do you pop up?
I have not watched the movie. If I'm gonna be perfectly honest,
Are you serious? You didn't watch it? No.
I'm actually not that into horror. Is the funny thing. I should watch it. I don't watch that much TV, and then like I just used it for my reel, so I scrolled and found where I was in it. I don't think it's that far into the movie. I'm gonna guess within the first like half hour, maybe 45 minutes, but uh I'm recognizable enough that I had people text me when they saw it. It's only like one line, but I'm like literally hitting a crack pipe, and like the light from the lighter flashes on and like exposes my face, and then I won't say the line because you got to watch it to find out. It's
Oh,
the least. It's the least I can do for the Purge series that
wow.
put me in it that I haven't actually watched
Well,
myself.
so do you actually smoke something out of the pipe, or
No, I think if I remember correctly, I was just like lighting it, and then the spark of like they like use the spark of the lighter as like part of the practical lighting on my face.
so I've never seen The Purge. I think there's been a bunch of movies. So what is like the basic? Do you know what the basic plot of The Purge is? It's like
Yeah,
one night you get to go nuts, right?
yeah, I think it's just lawlessness, and then each have their own spin-off where it's like lawlessness on this one location, this one island, or something like that.
Mhm.
But I filmed a bunch with like the main, what was his name, Jovian Wade, I believe. It's like a young guy, like jacked, like maybe 20, maybe not even 20 years old, but like, super nice guy. Was like, he like was filming an action sequence, so like they're like he's like running from all these different like crackheads like me or whatever, and like they're doing like what do you call one of the like mounted cameras that they're like following him with, and so between scenes he's like just doing push-ups and like amping himself up so he looks jacked and is like super like psyched as he's running through, and we were like chatting during that time. It was great, very fun.
That's cool. Yeah, but what the um I guess the idea of a purge definitely uh it it there is an impulse, I think, for a lot of people. They would love just one opportunity to kind of go crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, based on what I talked about earlier about my revenge fantasies, I don't think one night's going to do it for me. I think I think I need very special moments.
You need
But
like
I'm
an assistant managing your schedule for the
Yeah, but also it's not just like it's not like I just want to go nuts and mayhem and all that. I want the people who hurt me to know that they hurt me, and
But
that
that gives them so much power.
I know, isn't that bad? But that's the thing. Like that's how lame my fantasy is. Where somehow, like these people probably forgot that I even existed. They're like, "What? Who are you again? I don't what? Okay, what did I do?
I'm the
Oh,
guy
really?
you didn't hold a door for at Whole
Yeah,
Foods, and
yeah,
now you will pay.
yeah." They're like, "Oh, sorry about that, buddy." And then if they
I would
said sorry, I'd be like, "Okay, okay, it's fine.
okay, I guess it's fine.
Yeah,
Like I guess it's
I'll be
okay.
fine." Yeah.
I would love to see social media purge in the sense of like the entire internet becomes 4chan for a day. I'm sure that's a terrible idea, but just like everything you say online today cannot be held against you tomorrow. Just fucking go nuts.
Yeah. Well, have you and I talked about Elon Musk buying Twitter and all that? I don't think we've talked about it.
Not deeply. I bet we texted some headlines or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What is the one of the latest headlines? It's like tech bro billionaires, and like they're all about free speech, like free speech in quotation marks. Like now free speech has been given the
dog whistle.
Yeah, like come on, it's so I don't know. I just see like people just grasping, like they just, it seems like they really are losing their hold, and it's just like they're just going to keep throwing the same stuff. Okay, how do we make free speech sound bad? How do we make the thing that was so important for every civil rights movement sound bad? How can we,
it's always so hard to tell though, because like it's hard to tell whether it's an actual critical mass of people that have that point of view, or whether it's like the couple psychos writing headlines for BuzzFeed or whatever,
Right. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like working. I call it like B- term papers, where it's like you're in college, you have a paper due the next day, you haven't done any work, you're like, fuck, what do I do? It's like, well, how do I make this thing racist? Okay, this is a racism thing. This is a racism. So then, okay, yeah, I could bend reality to make it seem racist. The idea that there's some people out there, sure, there's some people out there who want to be able to type the N-word in full, or talk about white supremacy and all that. So therefore, all free speech is the tool of racists and white supremacists.
That'd be a fun exercise to just do that with everything in the Constitution, I mean, I guess people sort of do that, but it'd be fun to go through like one by one and just like, here's why the right to privacy is racist.
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. What was funny is, sort of like, I think only a couple of days after it was announced that Musk had purchased Twitter, I actually had a run-in on Twitter with a legit fucking racist. Like not somebody who's just, being called racist because it's, politically, just a way to shut them up. No, like a legit racist, like a person who's like the United States is European, and European blood is what makes the US, and we're going to push out all of you third worlders. And I think they called me a brown shit stain because my like Perez, like they called me Sephardic and all that, like and it was I was having a ball, like talking with this anonymous nobody who I describe it, it's a white identitarian, and it's like you could tell just how big of a fucking loser these white identitarians are by how far back in history they need to go to talk about other people's accomplishments.
It's so strange. I know a guy like that. I don't know if we've ever discussed him, but I know a guy who used to do New York open mics who's like this weird nebbish, like I think he's French actually. I'm not going to say his name just to not even give him any attention beyond the anecdote, but we still follow each other on Twitter because he actually he used to write okay jokes, and he like built up a Twitter following, and he actually was like really nice, despite the fact that he does post explicitly anti-Semitic stuff and like stuff that's like definitely like white supremacist stuff. But he was like we chatted before he started posting all that when it was mostly jokes. We like chatted, and he gave me advice on like building a following on Twitter and like things like that. And then slowly I just started seeing like some right-wing stuff on his Twitter that like wasn't anything particularly alarming or weird, and then it just escalated into like very explicit like actual white supremacy.
Yeah, and I checked out this person's timeline, and there were things there that I hadn't seen ever or hadn't come across. Like there were montages of like white people fighting back, against black people and stuff. I'm like, I haven't seen that. Like, like, wow, Twitter's really, opening doors, I guess, if you're into that shit. But, a part of me is still like, I haven't blocked the person yet. I think they must have, I don't know, maybe they got bored with me. Maybe they found somebody who was more, authentically a brown stain, and not me.
Yeah.
But in a way, I'm like, well, I'm kind of happy that person's there, because for me, I get chuckles out of it. I make fun of that person. I, go after them and pick apart their arguments, and then I have fans of mine that are going against that person. And you know what? If there are people out there with those actual ideas, well, it's good that I actually know how to engage with them to a certain degree.
Yeah,
It's entertaining too. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't block somebody like that. I can't imagine the scenario because like I guess maybe if they're like messaging and I'm getting a lot of notifications, but I'm sure I can turn off. I don't have Twitter notifications on for everything. But I find it too interesting, maybe especially if it's like a real life person to be like, wow, what is this? How does this person's brain work?
Right.
That I don't think I'd want to like. Yeah, I wouldn't want to block them because I don't know what that accomplishes.
Yeah. And what's kind of, cool is like, when you're talking about identity, like, for however many years, like say the past, 7 years or so, I've been definitely on the right of center. Some of my stuff, I get, some of my stuff a little bit more hardcore than other stuff, and libertarian and anarcho-capitalist and all that. Where when I meet a person like this, they put me like on the side of the left. So I'm like, now I'm with like my lefty brothers and sisters, where I'm like, yeah, this racist piece of shit. Like, I feel like now, thanks to that person, I now feel a little bit more solidarity with, people of color, if you will, and, people who are getting, hammered by actual racists and all that. It's like, yeah, I'm on your side when it comes to this shit.
Yeah, there's maybe something nice about the both extremes that maybe if I were to really optimistically look at it and also deny reality in some ways, that in some ways those extremes maybe bring the rest of us together.
Yeah.
One would hope. One would love to think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Then I mean, ultimately, then it's just instead of bringing us together, there's going to be people just push you towards them. Like, no, you're actually a part of them. Like that's what that's what you're into.
Oh, I just realized you could see the reflection of my other. It's a good thing I don't like porn on the screen or anything there.
I was actually hoping that you had some porn on, because unfortunately I'm not able to, to have, porn streaming while I'm recording. It's just because my computer's too slow. But a while ago, I'm not gonna say her name, but there was a person who Boris and I both know, who was going on to my my public, I guess my performer page. I would put on like Facebook. So I have my personal page and my performer page. I mean, they're pretty much the same. Like if you guys want to follow me, you could do that. If you want to get in touch with me, I prefer if you get in touch with me like through my website or on locals.com. But yeah, this person, she went on my on my public page and just started like making these comments about me being alt-right and all that. And it was pretty it was pretty I don't know, upsetting, because I'm not. And I had just written that article in the Wall Street Journal where I think maybe she just read the headline, like how I became a quote far right radical, and figured, well, he's far right, therefore he's alt right. I think when a lot of people throw alt right around, they don't understand I don't know, just how powerful of a term that is if you're going to paint somebody that way. Because for me, when I hear alt right, I think of, oh, you're a white, white nationalist of some sort, or you want a white ethno state, and that is definitely not me. And I went back at her, pretty hard. I forget how many comments in before I said something along the lines of it's a shame you can't choose between being stupid and mentally ill. You got both of them going for you. And but yeah, so there we go.
It's a shame because that probably a somewhat true statement. What's she supposed to do with that comment?
What is she supposed to do with it?
Oh man, that'd be funny to want a white ethno state, but like in Canada, like to live in America, but just like I'd like to see a white ethno state in Poland.
Elsewhere,
Yeah.
I'd like to see a white ethno state. Oh yeah, and this this other person, this racist on Twitter, just extolling all the great virtues of Europe, and it's like Europe, like.
Those are white ethno states.
Yeah, great. Yeah. It's like, when we want to, if you want to know about the future we should be looking to, check out that superpower, Hungary. That's the fucking, that's the future. It's like, give me a fucking break, man.
COVID made them all forget about Sweden. We don't like Sweden no more.
So, what a lot of people might not know this about you, or at least my listeners, but you are a legit refugee. Am I right?
This is true. I technically came here as a refugee from Ukraine, although not from this crisis. Wouldn't that be sick if I dropped an accent in like 2 weeks? That'd be pretty skillful. When I was 7 in 1991, right after the Soviet Union collapsed.
Whoa, man. That's wild. Have you been back to Ukraine ever?
We did, yeah. We went back like 15 years ago. It was cool. It was really nice to see. I'm from Odessa, which is like on the Black Sea, and we went during the summer. It was too hot, but it was nice. And then we had like 2 other trips planned that, of course, like different world events prevented.
Yeah. Well, what do you make of what's going on in Ukraine? A friend of mine, Konstantin Kisin, who hosts Trigonometry. I don't know if you're familiar with that. He co-hosts it with Francis Foster. Great guys, and they've had a tremendous amount of success, and deservedly so. And so Konstantin is from Ukraine. He's British. I think he was born in Ukraine, and his family moved to Britain, and he has gone back and forth and all that, and he's been really good at sort of explaining the situation as somebody who has family there, he has family in both Ukraine and Russia, saying what's going on, and it's good to have people who are giving factual information instead of pulling stuff out of their ass.
It's almost more about it being contextual than factual, because like that's another thing that I've seen on both sides, but probably a little bit more on the right, is a lot of like what might be described as Putin propaganda, essentially, but some of which is based in fact, and it becomes difficult trying to have that conversation. It similar to a lot of other political dynamics here, but it becomes a thing where what you're saying is true, but the meaning is very different. Like a lot of the talk of Putin calling Ukraine a Nazi state and blah blah blah. There is anti-Semitism there. It's one of the reasons why my family left. Was we specifically came as Jewish refugees because at the time, particularly during the Soviet Union, you were not a Russian, you were a Jew. Like your passport literally said Jew. Your passport would say Ukrainian. It would be the area you're from, Ukrainian or Azerbaijan or whatever. But if you were Jewish, it said Jew. And so like there was that, and there was, when we came back, I actually saw like swastikas spray painted on rocks. This was about 15 years ago. And it also is a very corrupt government, but all of that has progressed, I would say, for the better over particularly the last 5 to 10 years. And so a lot of the stuff that's like technically true. There's still a lot of corruption in Ukraine, but in the context of them being a sovereign nation that was invaded by a neighboring country, it's not, it's just propaganda that's trying to be used for justification for an invasion. It's not a legitimate criticism because it contextually isn't really relevant here.
And I watched a clip of Ukrainian President Zelensky. Is that how you pronounce his name? And obviously I don't speak Russian. I speak Ukrainian, so I'm dependent on the the captions, the translation there. But he was asked about the neo-Nazis, or however you want to explain it, however you want to describe them, and he said, "Yeah, we have them, and we're working together, and we're fighting together." So he added there was more context there as well. But it's sort of I remember reading about during before World War II, there were fascists in Italy. There were obviously fascists in Germany, these rising, groups. There were fascists
and in America,
and in England. There were all these fascists. And then what happens is that fascism, is pushed aside for nationalism when your country is attacked. So English fascists fought Hitler, and et cetera. American fascists, were willing to to go and fight because nation and country was more important than it wasn't necessarily like a global fascism wasn't necessarily a global thing, or at least the goal was
they weren't imperialist fascists,
or something like that. And look, I'm sure there's a bunch of people listening right now be like, Lou, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Fine, hit me up and teach me that. But I hear what you're saying as far as the context being saying a lot about what the situation is.
Yeah, and there's tons of other stuff about like Putin being, because you remember back when George Bush met with Putin like wore a cross and gave him this nonsense story and about being a Christian and wearing it during his time as a KGB slimeball, and that like has fed into this narrative a little bit of like it's almost there's this famous, I would recommend anybody watch it, and it used to be passed around the right a lot as a criticism of the left, legitimately so, which is this, you've probably seen this interview with Yuri Bezmenov, who was a defected KGB agent, and he talked about the process of demoralization and a multi-generational process where you sort of brainwash generations in America to hate their own country and to see America as and very often that was looked at through the lens of criticizing the American left, that started to become like America is the bad guy in the whole world, everything that happens, blah, blah, blah. And now I started seeing that more on the right from certain people, where it's like, well, if Putin's fighting NATO, it means he's fighting globalism, and America's globalist and NATO's globalist, and Putin is now the hero. And it's like, just there's not a neat little narrative here where all the bad guys in your story seem to coalesce around, or all the good guys. It's just everything becomes this like story that we want to tell ourselves.
Right. Yeah. And I think it also, it shows too, like the complexity of other nations and their history too. It's like, well, I did have a funny joke. There was that story about trans women in Ukraine being unable to leave with biological women and children because the Ukrainians consider them men. And I had the idea of the Ukrainian trans women staying behind, but they only have to fight Russian women who are invading. Like that's who they, that's who they have to. And then that's when I don't know. Never came to fruition. I never made that video. Never really made that joke. I think outside of to a few friends over text.
Texted it a few times, and they were like, "Watch out, Lou."
Yeah, like Lou. I wouldn't, I wouldn't die on that hill. I wouldn't.
Yeah, it was just it was a brief little hiccup where so much of our coverage started to project these like American social justice things into this war, and it's so funny to watch and so unsustainable because it's a fucking war. And
Yeah,
just like, yeah, you know what? Some of this is probably happening. Also, there's a war going on.
yeah,
You know, it's
yeah. But yeah, but there was the trans women being forced to stay in the country. Then there was the black people not being allowed over the border, or having to go through, I guess, more checkpoints or something like that. That was there for a few minutes. Yeah, it's like,
there was the Daily did an episode where they interviewed different like refugees and stuff. And there was a guy it was a fairly sympathetic story. He I think was originally from Crimea and then was a gay guy that was from Crimea and was displaced and moved, I believe, to Kiev. I'm not positive on that, but I think it was Crimea to Kiev. And then he had to evacuate Kiev again. It was, he'd already evacuated his home once and then he had to evacuate it again. But the narrative was that, he didn't want to stay and fight. And he's not trans, he's gay. And he's like, I just don't think this is the way I can help. When I was a kid, I played with dolls. I wasn't into playing with soldiers. And I'd be much more useful, cheering
glowing
on.
dudes.
Yeah.
What's he getting at here?
Maybe, yeah, but he said like I forget, like drawing pictures and like cheering on, and it was just one of those things to me that was just so. I fully sympathize with him, but without any of this news piece, it's like I sympathize with anyone who doesn't want to go and fight in a war. No shit. Literally, part of the reason my parents brought me over here was also because there was a mandatory military service in Ukraine, and my parents didn't want that for me either. They wanted me to live in a country where there's enough of a infrastructure, that there is a professional military class, and that the public is not forced to do that. And that's a luxury, and I feel very fortunate to have that luxury. But also, I'm like, you don't need to spend time creating sympathy for someone who doesn't want to fight when their country's being invaded in a way that is a little bit of a shameful thing. And I sympathize with that shame. I would also feel shame, and I also wouldn't want to fight. But that's normal. You don't need a news report on that. Those are like normal human things. It felt weird to glorify at a time when a country actually needs people to fight.
Yeah. And
not glorify, but you know what I mean, to really highlight.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you're highlighting, like, I mean, so much coming, that we've been seeing is like the real heroism of Ukrainians who've stayed and fought, and taking out like a lot of fucking Russians and equipment and all that. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what the next. Obviously, I don't know what the next steps are. To any of this stuff, but.
Well, I'll tell you what, May 9th is an important day. And so I don't know exactly what will happen, but they invaded during an important Russian holiday. And so May 9th is the Russian Victory Day. And so there's a lot of speculation. I mean, the reality is that this is a thing that's going to go on for years, but there's a lot of speculation that there's going to be some sort of declaration from Putin because he needs to sort of like announce some sort of victory for Victory Day.
Has there been any fighting like on Russian soil, like any
the only thing I've heard of
stuff, or
perhaps nothing I'd be privy to, but I do know that there was like a oil refinery that like 2 Ukrainian, I don't think they admitted to it, which of course they shouldn't, but it's most likely, almost definitely 2 Ukrainian helicopters, which is also fairly embarrassing for Russia. Like, these weren't even like that stealthy of an operation or whatever that they managed to blow up. And I believe no deaths either. It was like an unmanned like oil refinery or something like that. But that's the only thing I'd heard of. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they're getting tons of money funneled. They have what seems like a very innovative military that has a lot more flexibility than Russia does, the way that their military is set up. Not to mention that Russia, for Ukraine being corrupt and having race issues, Russia's got their own race issues, and they've got a shitload of corruption where like part of what's fucked them is there's all this money that's been thrown into like money that was supposed to go towards like separatist groups in Ukraine and all this stuff that was all just like stolen.
Yeah, I forget who it was. I think it might have been this guy Jeffrey Sachs talking on the Fifth Column podcast, and I think he's an academic, and I think he studies dictators and that sort of thing. And he said like one of the downsides of being a dictator, I mean, it's cool to have all that power, but when
It's
you also
lonely
have
at the top.
it's lonely at the top. When you have all that power, well, people hide things from you because they're scared to tell you things, what's going on, and they're scared to be honest about what's going on. So you might think that you're holding on to this incredible power and the people love you and all that, but you really don't know what's going on. You don't know how people are truly feeling,
and it could all topple at an instant,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just imagining like, the Russians who are, being sent to invade Ukraine. They're like, what am I doing over here? What are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of them literally did not know what they were doing there, and then even a lot of military command wasn't disclosed that it wasn't an exercise and blah 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 until those are all things that contributed to the disaster that it's sort of been for them.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'm happy to say is that this has not been a disaster. Our conversation, I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Likewise,
it's a long time coming.
If I could add one point actually really quick that I haven't heard, because I feel like some of that was repeating a lot of stuff I heard. But one thing I will add that I realized recently is there's a little bit of analogy to Israel and Palestine, and not in the way that you would think, in the way that like in America, some of the tension has been like projected over here to Russians and Ukrainians. But it's very funny because like up until I know I have some relatives who, when Russia invaded Crimea, that's when they began to like correct people and be like, I'm not Russian, I'm Ukrainian. Before then, people would ask me if I was Russian, and like half the time, if I'm not trying to have a long conversation with them, I'll be like, yeah, like they never heard of Ukraine, And now people are more vocal and there's some tension, but they all shop at net cost. They all go to the same Russian restaurant. There's only one Russian grocery chain. And whether you're Ukrainian or Russian or from Belarus, they're all going to that grocery chain. And it reminds me of how, like, here in America, like, Jews and Muslims can't get rid of each other, because if you move to a new area and you're Muslim, the closest thing to the food that you eat is kosher. And if you're Jewish, the closest thing to the food that you eat is halal. And so, like, they're sort of drawn together because they're culturally still so tied whenever they move around here. And same thing with Russia and Ukraine. Like, there's a little bit of this like cancel culture projection of like protesting Russian foods or whatever, or like Russian restaurants. But like, if it's not a deeply ethnic area for Russians, like Ukrainians are going to the Russian spots, Russians are going to the Ukrainian spots.
Wow. No, it's an interesting way to think about it. I mean, automatically thinking about Jews and Muslims circumcised. Russians and Ukrainians probably not, unless they're Jewish.
Exactly. Well, not even. I mean, not. I wasn't until I came here, because you couldn't practice. But when I lived there, you couldn't. It was illegal to practice religion, so there was no circumcising anybody.
Oh my God! How old were you when you got nipped?
7 years old, baby.
7 years old. My God, how much did he take off? Jeez.
Well, I was 7, so I can't say I remember what was there before, but worked out okay. There's another comic who had a really similar story, and his was botched apparently. He talks about it publicly, so I won't mention his name, but yeah, we had a real goofus and gallant scenario with their circumcisions, because mine. The only thing I remember was being handed. You remember those video games that they had in like the 90s, where it was like a football game and it was like a static background and little LCD football players that like moved? They gave me one of those. That's all I remember, sitting there playing the game, and then it was done. And I was fine.
I hear having a foreskin is like playing real football, though. So I don't have one. I I got circumcised. So
Yeah, well, that's part of why I asked my mom like years later, actually pretty recently. For some reason, I never like thought about it, and I was like, "Why did you do it?" And she was like, "Well, I was told that's what they do in America, and I didn't want you to be different." Like, dude,
I was gonna say they're
it
pretty
didn't.
secular. They're pretty secular people
Yeah,
too. Parents.
but it didn't sound like she like put a ton of thought into it. It didn't like today. Like I feel like I'm having a daughter, but if I were to have a son, I haven't made up my mind on it, and it's something that I maybe would lean towards it, maybe. But like honestly, when I have discussed it, I have really left the decision to like, you know what, when I actually have a son, if and when, and he's born, I feel like I'll have more information at that time just from the experience, and I'll probably have some gut feeling on what I want to do. And so I've kind of like left it undecided, but I've like, thought about it and weighed the pros and cons
Yeah.
and stuff. And when I asked my mom, it sounded like she was just like, no, I don't know. Everybody was doing it. So figured
Yeah,
you do it.
no, I do think that was at the time like that's kind of how people were thinking. I'm circumcised. My two younger brothers, they're not circumcised. My two boys are not circumcised. I was when both of them were born, like they ask, and like I think at both times I was very sternly said absolutely not. Something like you're not touching the baby. I've done I've done a little bit of research. I've seen a lot of cocks. I think it's unnecessary. And then also, when you're being there for both the births of my sons, and seeing them, cry, and the initial, pain and shock of coming out, of being born and coming into this world, and then just seeing like this elective, doing elective surgery to them so young, and I've seen pictures like how they do it, like they basically tie them down and all that. I was like, no, thank you. If they so choose that they want to do this, they can make that choice later on in life, and I'll
if they decide they want to wander the desert for a few years.
Exactly. And risk temptation and all that, they go for it. For those of you listening, if you have your foreskin, let us know what you think. If you don't have your foreskin, well, we don't need to hear from you. We just want to hear from the foreskin guys, because we know what's up. But Boris Khaykin, like I said, you're a great friend, amazing comedian, and I think like most people, many people who listen to this, they'll be able to say like, yeah, and he is also a very rational dude and a good guy to go to when you're in need of answers. And thank you for being one of my wisest friends.
Your rabbi. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. This was very fun.
Cool. And where can people check out your stuff? So.
At the Boris K on all social media.
Sweet. Thank you so much for listening. And again, please order my book, That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore, on the death and rebirth of comedy. Just follow the link in the description or head over to Amazon and search for Lou Perez, That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore. And please subscribe to my podcast. Leave a 5-star review. Why not? Sign up for my newsletter at thelouperez.com. And if you want other ways to support my work, you can join thelouperez.locals.com. And of course, be sure to support my sponsors. PalomaVerdeCBD.com. Use promo code Lou for 25% off purchases over $75. And Black Organic Cold Brew. BLVCKBREW.com. Use promo code Lou for free shipping. Thank you.